All right. Hi, it's Hannah Andersen, and I'm here today to talk about my ideal grading policy as a prospective elementary educator. And to put it simply, I am hoping to implement standards-based grading in my classroom. And so looking at the definition of what standards-based grading is, according to the article, Standards-Based Grading, New Report Cards that aim to make mastery clear. The definition says that teachers should have clearly defined academic goals for their students to be able to determine if they've met them and communicate that to students and parents. And so, honestly, that makes the most sense that my grading should be based on here's an objective that they need to meet and did they make it. And so that's, to put it simply, why I'm in support of that. But there's some other nitpicky stuff I also like about this standards-based grading policy. And so I'll go into detail on those now. The first one is that I think you should be assessed on if you met your objectives at the end of the year and not at a certain point in time. I think unfortunately a lot of students are not able to retake tests, and they're not able to show that they have mastered an objective later, and that if a student doesn't meet an objective at a certain point in time, that I as a teacher need to make sure I look into that and see why they didn't make it and make sure that they do eventually meet it so they don't fall behind in their educational growth and process. The second reason is that I think standards-based grading is simple and you can't hide behind certain fillers such as homework and attendance. I think that this is the most clear and simple way to say, yes, you made the objective, you made the goal. Douglas Reeves in that same article put it really simply, makes people more honest, which I think is very true. I've definitely been in that situation when you did all your homework and you memorized answers and you got an A, even though honestly, did you meet the objective? Questionable. Another article I read about, it was called 7 Reasons, and it gave 7 reasons on why we should implement standards-based grading. And reason 6 was it teaches what quality looks like. And I think that's another great way of putting it, that we as teachers should be looking at the quality over the quantity. And did you make it to class this many days? Okay, then you get a good grade. If you didn't, then no. I think it should be more qualitative, like, did you meet this objective? Did you meet this simple goal that I set? And that makes the most sense to me. And then basically the teacher I interviewed said this exact same thing, that it should be measuring if you made a goal. Did you meet the standard that I set for the class? It shouldn't be if you went to class, if you did all the homework, if you did everything perfectly. It should be, do you have a clear understanding of this certain objective? It's funny because I didn't ask him, do you believe in standards-based grading? I asked him, what is your grading policy? And he just put it in a very simple sentence, I'm in favor of standards-based grading. And I was like, sweet, that's a great sign that lots of teachers are implementing this in their classroom and supporting it. Unfortunately, there was a lot, but there was some counter arguments against standards-based grading. The first one is that it won't motivate students, which I can understand, I guess, that a student may not feel motivated to get an A, especially if they've in the past gotten A's and B's and this is kind of a new concept. I also think that being able to retake tests and being able to improve and see your progression and making sure you don't fall behind can also motivate students, and saying that, hey, you didn't meet this objective, you need to meet it, otherwise you're not gonna be proficient. I think that motivates students as well. And so I think that's a very understandable, but also not necessarily true counter argument. And the other one that was very apparent as well, the other counter argument, was that parents will be confused and students will be confused and they just don't understand it, which is, I think that's just the definition of change. That's the definition of, I'm not used to something and so I don't like it. And so I think that it is hard when we have to change, not have to, but when we do change something to something new, like grading, I think that you will get some backlash from people who don't understand it. And I think that is a valid counter argument that, yeah, you're going to need to explain it to parents and you're going to need to Yeah, that was put poorly. Let me restate that again. I think that it is true that people aren't going to understand it, but it's easy to understand it and learn it and and as me as a teacher, I will gladly explain it to you. That's what I was trying to say. And so I think that, unfortunately, it's one of those hurdles we have to get over. We have done A through Fs for such a long time, and so this is just one extra step to get over. I also think it's important that we don't translate standards-based into A, Bs, and Cs. I think that students need to understand that they're two different things. That I think that's one of the hard things about students-based grading right now, is if you implement it in your classroom, but then you have to translate it into A's and B's and C's, it's not a very accurate way. And so I understand how parents would be frustrated with that, oh, I'm a proficient, but I got like an 80, what? And so I think that that is one issue right now, is that we haven't fully committed to standards-based grading. Yeah, and so that is my rationale, examining the counter arguments, and that I am a proponent of measuring goals instead of attendance. Yes.